The arrival of the aliens. The night sky above Earth was never silent anymore. For weeks, astronomers had spoken about the strange lights moving closer, brighter than any star. Governments tried to calm people, saying it was only comets or unusual space activity. But everyone knew the truth long before officials admitted it. Something was coming, and it was not human. On a quiet night when the moon hung low and the oceans glimmered with pale silver light, the world saw it. Ships, dozens, maybe hundreds, appeared in orbit. They were smooth, shining, and shaped like nothing built by human hands. They did not arrive with thunder or fire, but their silent presence was even more terrifying. The largest ship moved first. It glided down like a mountain drifting through the sky, blocking the stars behind it. Its surface glowed faintly with lines of blue light, like rivers of energy flowing across its hull. Cameras from every nation pointed upward, and the whole world watched. Humanity held its breath. Some people prayed, some wept. Some whispered that this was the end. The ship opened, and smaller vessels detached, falling slowly toward Earth. They entered the atmosphere without flames or sound, as if gravity itself obeyed their command. These ships descended into the great capital cities, New York, Beijing, Paris, Moscow, yet the most important one landed in Geneva, Switzerland, where the United Nations waited. Crowds filled the streets, kept back by soldiers who looked just as uncertain as the civilians they were supposed to protect. Every gun, every tank, every missile was aimed at the landing site, though deep inside, soldiers knew those weapons were only for comfort. They could not truly stop what was coming. The alien craft touched the ground without stirring dust. Its surface shifted like liquid metal, smooth one moment, sharp the next. Then a door opened with a whisper. Figures stepped out. They were tall, taller than any man. Their bodies were thin, yet strong, covered in a kind of pale armor that seemed to grow from their skin. Their faces were narrow, with dark eyes that caught the light like mirrors. They carried no weapons, only long staffs, symbols of authority. The crowd gasped. Cameras zoomed in. Across every screen on Earth, the same images played. The aliens had arrived. One of them stepped forward. His voice was deep, though it seemed to echo without a microphone. Somehow, everyone could hear it clearly, even in their own language. "People of Earth," he said, "we come as envoys of the Concord of Worlds. We bring the hand of peace. Accept it, and you will be spared the cost of resistance. Refuse it, and you will not endure what follows." There was no shout, no cheer, no applause. Only silence. The alien leader spread his arms, as if expecting humanity to fall at his feet. His voice softened, almost kind, but the threat lingered in every word. "For centuries you have been alone in the dark. We now offer you a place among the stars. But this place has rules. You must yield, for the conquered is strong, and strength must guide order." The words felt rehearsed, as if spoken many times to many worlds. It was not an invitation. It was a demand. Inside the Great Hall of the United Nations, leaders sat frozen. They could see the aliens through tall glass windows, standing calmly outside, waiting for an answer. The world's most powerful men and women suddenly felt small, like children faced with a teacher far greater than themselves. But there was something strange in the silence that followed. The aliens expected immediate surrender, yet no one moved. No one spoke. Not one leader reached for the microphone to accept. The crowd outside shifted nervously. Soldiers' fingers tightened on their weapons. Mothers held children close. The air grew heavy, filled with waiting. The alien envoy narrowed his eyes. He tapped his staff against the ground, and the sound echoed like a hammer on stone. "Earth," he repeated, his voice sharper. "You must decide." But Earth said nothing. The seconds stretched into minutes. The silence itself became an answer. Humanity was not kneeling. And then, far above the city, the clouds began to shift. At first, it was only a low hum, too faint for most to notice. But it grew louder, rolling across the sky like distant thunder. People tilted their heads upward, confused. The aliens paused, their calm faces flickering with unease. Through the thin veil of clouds a shadow appeared. It was vast, covering the moonlight, spreading across the city below. Larger than any of the alien vessels, larger than anything humanity had ever seen in the skies. Its edges burned faintly with golden fire, and lights flickered across its surface like stars trapped in steel. The alien envoy stopped speaking. His black eyes lifted upward. For the first time since stepping onto Earth's soil, his face showed something different, uncertainty. The crowd gasped, whispers turning to cries. Soldiers looked at each other with wide eyes. Leaders inside the United Nations chamber rose to their feet. Above them all, the Titan-Class Warship moved into view. Its presence alone was enough to silence the city. It was humanity's greatest secret, a creation hidden in shadows, built not for conquest, but for survival. And now it revealed itself, not with words, but with shadow. The alien envoy's voice faltered. His staff trembled slightly in his hand. Humanity still said nothing. It did not need to. The Titan-Class Warship spoke for them. Humanity's silence. The alien envoy stood frozen, his dark eyes fixed on the sky. The shadow of the Titan-Class Warship stretched over the ground like the wing of a giant bird, swallowing the alien craft and the diplomats beneath it. The silence was powerful. No gun fired, no human shouted, yet the presence of the ship spoke louder than any words could. The alien diplomats exchanged glances. Their expressions shifted, but only slightly. They tried to remain calm, but their bodies betrayed them. One envoy gripped his staff too tightly, the metal bending under his hand. Another's breathing became shallow, his chest rising and falling too quickly. This was not what they expected. The Concord of Worlds had visited many planets before. They had come to broken civilizations, to frightened leaders, to people who bent their knees at the first show of alien strength. They thought Earth would be the same. But now they saw something else, something dangerous. In the chamber of the United Nations, leaders whispered, but their voices were low, as if even they were afraid of breaking the silence. The Titan-class ship had been built in secret, known only to a few. Even many of the men and women inside the hall were seeing it for the first time. Their eyes widened, some with pride, some with fear. The Supreme General of Earth's defense leaned forward, his hands clasped behind his back. He did not smile, but his eyes burned with satisfaction. "Let them understand," he said quietly, his voice reaching only those close to him. "Let the ship speak for us." Outside, the alien envoy tried again. His voice, once steady, now carried a sharp edge. "You build machines of war," he said. "Do you think they will save you? Do you believe strength will shield you from the Concord's judgment?" Still, the humans answered with silence. In the crowd, people watched with wide eyes. Some trembled, but others felt something they had not felt in weeks. Hope. Mothers whispered to children, pointing at the enormous warship above. Soldiers who had stood stiff with fear now tightened their grips with renewed resolve. The aliens had spoken of peace, but everyone could feel the hidden threat in their words. Now humanity was showing its own reply, not with promises, not with speeches, but with a silent giant that cast its shadow over all. The envoy's voice rose, frustration breaking through his calm mask. "You misunderstand. This is not your choice. You cannot resist what is greater than you." His words echoed, but they did not carry the same power as before. Even his own companions glanced at him with unease. The humans still said nothing. Inside the UN chamber, a voice finally broke the silence. The Secretary General of the United Nations leaned forward to the microphone. His face was pale, but his tone was steady. "Envoy," he said, "you asked us to choose." The envoy turned sharply, his eyes narrowing. The Secretary General nodded slowly, his gaze lifting toward the window where the Titan-class warship loomed in the night sky. Its lights shimmered like a constellation made of steel. "This is our choice," gasps filled the hall. The leaders did not cheer. They did not raise their fists, but their eyes glowed with the same fire. For once, humanity stood as one voice. The envoy's staff slipped slightly in his hand. He clenched it tighter. You dare?" A ripple of unease passed through the alien group. Their arrogance cracked like glass under pressure. They had expected submission, maybe even desperate begging. Instead, they were faced with silence, with unity, with a shadow that no alien fleet had cast. Above, the Titan-class shifted slowly, as if adjusting its position. Its engines glowed brighter, humming like a star awakening. The sound rolled across the city, vibrating through the air, through the stone buildings, through the bones of every man, woman, and child watching below. The envoy staggered a step back. The humans did not move. In homes across the world, billions watched the broadcast. Old men leaned forward in their chairs. Children pressed their faces against glowing screens. Workers in distant cities stopped in the streets to stare upward. And across every nation, every language, the same thought whispered through the hearts of humanity. We are not weak. The alien envoy tried once more, his words sharp, almost desperate. The Concord has destroyed empires greater than yours. You stand at the edge of fire, and still you mock us with your silence. Speak, submit. But the humans did not. Instead, the Titan-class warship lowered slightly, its colossal hull reflecting the moonlight. Its shadow stretched even further, consuming the alien envoys entirely. For the first time, the envoys looked small. The silence grew heavier. It was no longer fear that filled the air. It was defiance. Inside the chamber, the General of Earth spoke again, his voice low but firm. They will speak when they understand, not before. The envoy's black eyes flickered with something new. Not rage, not arrogance, but the first spark of fear. The humans had given their answer, and the answer was silence, and above them the Titan-class ship waited, patient and unstoppable. The Titan-class revealed. The shadow of the Titan-class warship covered the city like an eclipse. Streetlights flickered as if afraid to shine under its presence. The alien diplomats, who had arrived with tall posture and calm pride, now looked suddenly small, almost fragile. For the first time, the humans did not feel like prey. The warship was not simply large. It was overwhelming. Its hull stretched for kilometers, a floating continent of steel and fire. Its surface was armored with plates that shimmered faintly in the night, marked with symbols of Earth's united nations. Along its edges, weapons the size of towers remained silent, pointing outward like the fangs of some cosmic predator. The envoy who had spoken so boldly lowered his staff slightly. His voice, when it returned, was quieter. This is not possible. You are a young world. You cannot build such a vessel. No species rises this quickly. But the ship was real. It moved slowly across the sky, every movement measured, every vibration shaking the ground below. People in the crowd felt the weight of its engines humming through their bones. Windows rattled. Birds scattered. Even the air itself seemed heavier. The alien envoy turned to his companions, his words sharp in a language not meant for human ears. Their voices carried tension. They had come expecting submission, but now they whispered like frightened men, seeing a storm approach. Inside the United Nations chamber, the leaders of Earth stood together at the tall windows. For once, they were united, not by treaties, not by politics, but by awe. The Secretary-General whispered, "So they finally see it." A general at his side nodded. "Let them see. Let them wonder how many more we have." Of course, humanity had only one Titan-class warship. It had taken decades of hidden effort, entire economies bent towards secrecy, millions of hands working in silence to bring it to life. But the aliens did not know that, and in this moment, perception mattered more than numbers. The envoy looked up again, his black eyes wide. His voice wavered. "This ship, this shadow you cast, is a threat." Still, humanity said nothing. The Titan-class ship hovered like a mountain suspended in the air. Then, with a low growl, a part of its hull began to shift. Metal plates folded back with slow precision, revealing the vast mouth of a hangar. Light spilled out, white and sharp, brighter than the moon. From within, smaller ships emerged, sleek, human-built craft, their wings sharp and glowing with thrusters. They fanned out in formation, hundreds of them, their engines roaring like a storm. The aliens staggered a step back. Their staffs no longer looked like symbols of authority. They looked like toys. The crowd erupted, not in cheers but in gasps and whispers. Some dropped to their knees, not in fear but in awe. For the first time in history, every person watching knew humanity was no longer a child in the galaxy. The envoy tried again, his words desperate. "You cannot frighten the Concorde with one ship. You think shadows will save you?" But even he did not believe his own words, because the Titan-Class Warship was not just a shadow. It was a message, a warning, a promise. Its lights glowed brighter, spreading across its vast body. Towers of steel extended outward, antennas reaching like spears into the sky. Its engines pulsed with golden fire, each flare brighter than lightning. The alien envoys shielded their eyes. Their faces twisted with emotions they tried to hide: fear, confusion, disbelief. Inside the chamber, one human leader finally spoke. His voice was calm, his words measured. "You came here to remind us of our weakness. But now you see our strength." The envoy spun toward the glass, his face pale. "This changes nothing. The Concorde has armies, fleets beyond number. This thing cannot protect you." Yet no one inside the chamber answered him. The Titan-class answered instead. Its massive body shifted again, and with a sound like thunder, a single cannon extended from its side. The barrel was long enough to stretch across the length of a skyscraper. It pointed directly toward the sky, not at the aliens, not at Earth, but upward into the stars, and then it fired. The sound shook the world. A beam of golden light tore through the clouds, slicing upward into the heavens. The night sky burned bright, and for a moment it seemed like a new sun had been born. The beam vanished as quickly as it came, leaving only silence and the crackle of fading energy. The message was clear. This weapon was not for show. It was real. The alien envoy staggered again. His staff clattered to the ground, the sharp ring echoing across the plaza. The humans still did not speak. They did not need to. The Titan-class had spoken for them. The turning of fear, the plaza where the alien envoy stood, no longer felt like their stage. When they first arrived, they moved with authority, believing the humans to be silent out of weakness. But now the silence had changed. It was heavy. It pressed against their chests and made their voices falter. Above them, the Titan-class warship hovered like a god of steel. Every flicker of its lights, every slow hum of its engines felt like a warning. Its weapons remained quiet, yet their presence was enough to unmake the certainty of the envoys. The envoy who had spoken the most struggled to lift his voice again. "You build this ship in secret," he said, his words sharp and uneven. "But one ship cannot stand against the Concorde. Do not mistake fear for power. The galaxy will crush you." But his staff shook in his hand, betraying him. Behind him, one of his companions leaned close and whispered quickly in their own tongue. Though the words were foreign, the tension in his voice was clear. Even the other aliens were no longer convinced. The human crowd sensed it. They had been afraid when the envoys landed, afraid when the words of surrender were spoken. But now the fear was shifting. It was no longer theirs. Mothers who had clutched their children now straightened their backs. Soldiers who had stood rigid with doubt now gripped their rifles with pride. Ordinary workers in the crowd raised their heads to the sky, their eyes reflecting the golden glow of the Titan-class warship. For the first time, humanity did not feel like prey. Inside the United Nations chamber, the leaders sat in silence, watching the aliens unravel. The Secretary-General glanced at the general beside him. "They expected us to kneel," he said softly. The general did not look away from the window. "They are not used to silence. They are used to obedience." The envoy struck the ground with his staff. The sharp sound echoed across the plaza. "Do you think this frightens us?" he shouted. "We are the Concorde. We have burned worlds greater than yours. We have broken empires that lasted thousands of years. Your ship is nothing before us." But his words were hollow. His voice cracked. and the Titan-Class warship remained unmoved. Then, as if to remind them of its presence, the ship adjusted its position. The sound of its engines rolled across the city, a deep vibration that made the ground tremble. The alien envoys flinched, their bodies stiffening as the shadow of the warship shifted over them again. One of them whispered, "It watches us." The crowd erupted in murmurs. The cameras caught every second, broadcasting the images across the world. Millions of humans saw the same thing. Aliens who had arrived as rulers now stood trembling like children. The envoy tried to speak again, but his words faltered. This is not—" He stopped, his throat tightening. Another envoy, younger and less experienced, stepped forward as if to regain control. "We came in peace," he said, his tone uneven. "We offered mercy. You answer with shadows and threats. This is not the way of the Concord. This is barbaric." But even he could not hold the mask of superiority. His eyes darted upward again, to the massive hull of the Titan-class. The Secretary-General pressed the microphone in front of him, but did not speak. He left it untouched. Humanity's silence was louder than words. The envoy's staff slipped in his grip. With a sharp clatter, it struck the stone ground. The sound echoed across the plaza like a bell, tolling the end of something. The envoy bent quickly to retrieve it, but the damage was already done. Cameras captured it. The world saw it. The Concorde's envoy had dropped his symbol of authority. The crowd of humans stirred, voices rising, but not in fear. They whispered to one another, their eyes burning with something new, defiance. The aliens had wanted submission. Instead, they had revealed humanity's resolve. The general inside the chamber leaned forward. His voice was calm, almost gentle, but filled with iron. "They are beginning to understand." The envoy lifted his staff again, but his hand shook visibly. His words came like a plea, not a command. "You do not know the galaxy," he said. "You do not know what awaits beyond your skies. You are a young species. You cannot stand against the Concorde." But humanity's answer remained the same. The Titan-class warship hovered above, silent, unyielding. Its presence alone told the aliens the truth. Humanity would never kneel. The envoy's face hardened, but his eyes betrayed him. Fear had entered, and once fear entered, it spread like fire. The humans had turned the silence into a weapon, and now the aliens stood trapped within it. Humanity's answer, the plaza had fallen into a strange stillness. The alien envoys stood pale under the golden light of the Titan-class warship, their staffs trembling in their hands. What began as a proud display of authority had turned into a silent struggle against fear. The humans did not move. They did not need to. The Titan-class ship hovered above them, silent and patient, its shadow covering the alien craft, the plaza, and even the United Nations building. It did not fire. It did not need to. Its very presence spoke with more weight than 1,000 speeches. For long minutes, the aliens tried to find their voices again, but the silence swallowed them. One whispered something in their own tongue, his voice quivering. Another kept glancing upward, as if expecting the massive ship to strike at any second. Finally, the envoy who had led them all forced his voice to rise. "You cannot intimidate the Concorde. We rule hundreds of systems. You are one world. You cannot imagine what waits beyond your skies. One ship will not save you." The words carried across the plaza, but they rang hollow. Inside the chamber, Earth's leaders remained quiet. Their faces were steady, their eyes fixed on the alien delegation. They had agreed long before they would not answer with fear nor with threats. They would let the ship speak until the aliens begged for words, and it worked. The envoy's staff clattered against the ground again. This time he did not bend to pick it up. His shoulders sagged. His voice was thin. "Then, what is your answer, humans? Will you yield, or will you force us to bring the wrath of the Concorde upon your world?" At last, the Secretary-General leaned forward. His hand brushed the microphone. The sound of his voice, when it came, was calm and measured, yet carried the weight of billions. "Our answer," he said, "is this." He turned slightly, gesturing toward the window. The Titan-class ship shifted again. Its vast engines glowed brighter, filling the night with golden fire. The ground vibrated as if the earth itself shared in its heartbeat. Slowly, the ship angled upward. Its weapons did not aim at the envoys, nor at the alien fleet waiting in orbit. Instead, the ship pointed toward the stars, and then, without warning, it fired. A second beam of light tore through the sky, brighter than the sun, splitting the night with pure force. It did not strike the aliens, but the heavens above. The message was clear. This was not a bluff. Humanity had power enough to shake the galaxy. When the light faded, the warship returned to silence. The city was quiet, except for the hum of its engines. The Secretary General spoke again. His words were sharp, cold, and undeniable. You came here with promises of peace, but your words carried chains. You came with staffs of authority, but no respect. You thought us children ready to kneel. We will not kneel. The envoy's face twisted. The Secretary General cut across him. If you want peace, you will speak as equals. If you want war, you will learn what it means to face humanity. The chamber erupted with murmurs. Some leaders nodded fiercely. Others sat frozen, their eyes locked on the massive warship outside. The envoy tried once more, but his voice cracked. You cannot win against the conquered. You do not know what waits beyond. The General of Earth's defense stepped forward. His voice was low, steady, and final. Then let them learn what waits here. The crowd outside stirred with a roar, not of cheers, but of voices rising as one. Billions across the planet watched, their fear washed away, replaced with something stronger. Unity. Defiance. The alien envoy could not hold their gaze any longer. He turned sharply, his cloak swirling, and motioned for his companions. Together, they retreated toward their ship. Their proud steps were gone. Now they walked with haste, almost stumbling. The human crowd parted for them, not with fear, but with silent judgment. Every eye followed them as they entered their strange vessel. The alien craft rose quickly into the air, vanishing toward orbit where the rest of their fleet waited. The envoys had come to force humanity's submission, but they left in silence, carrying only the memory of the Titan-Class shadow. Above, the great warship remained. It did not chase. It did not speak. It only watched. Inside the chamber, the Secretary General stood tall, his words carrying across the hall. This day will not be forgotten. The galaxy will learn what we already knew. Humanity does not bow. The leaders stood in silence, and then slowly, one by one, they nodded. On the streets, civilians looked at the night sky and saw not fear, but strength. Soldiers lowered their weapons, pride burning in their eyes. Children pointed at the lights of the warship, whispering stories they would tell for generations. And far above, the Titan-class vessel turned slowly in orbit, its engines glowing like a rising sun. It was not just a ship. It was a promise that no matter who came, no matter what power arrived from the stars, humanity would endure. The Concorde had come with diplomacy wrapped in threats. They had expected obedience. What they found was silence, shadow, and steel. They left not with victory, but with fear, and in that moment, the galaxy changed.